The problem of inconsequentialism is what's known as a collective action problem. Now, I know I just defined one piece of jargon with yet more jargon that you may be unfamiliar with, so let me unpack this. They describe issues of scale between the individual and the collective. The problem of inconsequentialism that I want to focus on observes a paradox. When individual actions, if even seemingly harmless at the small individual level, are aggregated together at a large scale, the consequences can become disastrous. For example, driving a car 10 minutes into town once a day is pretty benign. The carbon emissions are so low they're negligible, and we can assume that no animals were hit in the process. But when this simple drive is multiplied across some billion drivers worldwide, the net result is clearly harmful. The carbon emissions from transportation are noticeably high, and many animals have lost their lives on the roads. And it cuts the other way. For people who wish to do something about the issue of transportation related carbon emissions, their individual change, say biking to town, is but a drop in the bucket. The impact of their biking to town is so small that it's inconsequential to lowering overall emissions, and it will be until change happens at the larger scale of the collective. That is, until the majority of us, or all of us even, are also biking rather than driving. And so the point of this collective action problem is that either negative or positive change doesn't manifest and fully reveal itself until replicated by the collective rather than at the individual level. In other words, you have to ask yourself what the impacts of something would be once replicated by the collective. Now, that can feel like a depressing or disempowering thought that my activism or perceived solution to a problem makes no difference and won't until everyone else does what I deem to be a helpful response. And since there's no guarantee that everyone will follow suit or agree that my method of change is the best route, then what's the point of doing anything at all? This is a challenge, and I pose it early in the series so that you can keep it in the back of your mind as you consider the perspectives to come. Namely, these perspectives are grief work, an act of hope, and virtue ethics. In the following sections, I'll share some responses that validate an individual's activism, regardless of what it achieves. I find these responses to be highly empowering and encouraging, and I hope you do too. But keep in mind, ethical perspectives that validate an individual's actions, regardless of those actions' consequences or large-scale effects, don't change the fact that we still need system-level change. Change at the collective scale is required to create more socially and ecologically just systems to live by. But the need for this collective action is compatible with grief work, act of hope, and virtue ethics. Therefore, the challenge is to lean into change making at the individual level, and doing so for its own sake, and finding meaning in it despite the consequences it brings about, while simultaneously pushing for our forms of activism to be replicated by others at the collective scale.